Good morning. How's everybody doing? Couple more minutes. We'll see if anybody else is coming. Matt. Good morning. Okay, so the paper is due tonight. Does anybody have any questions about how to incorporate your sources, organization, anything to do with finishing it up? All good? Yeah, Adeline, I looked at Justin's too. So really, we're now getting to the end goal of the class, which is how to take everything that we've done everything to this point and incorporate it as needed for research writing, telling stories, describing things, giving examples, explaining your thinking. All of that's going to be incorporated into the last research paper you guys are going to work on. And that'll be the project we're working on for the rest of the semester. Isaac? Person who's waiting. All right. If you do come up with any questions afterward, just email me, and I'll be on working with the Writing Center for a couple hours after this. So if anything comes up while you're working on it, it's due by midnight tonight or 11:59. Just the thing we're trying to avoid here is plagiarizing, right? So don't get too close to the original wording, translate it into the way that you would say it, and make sure that you cite it. Cite anything you take from a source, right? All right, I think pretty much everybody's with us. I want to look at the next assignment that you guys are going to start working on. We're going to do a bunch of small assignments that lead up to the research paper, so that by the time you start writing the first draft, you're going to be in pretty good shape knowing what you should write and in what order. Okay. So I want to show you, let's see, let's talk about the next assignment that you're going to work on. So if everybody will go to Blackboard. Go under assignments. And then you're going to scroll down just a couple to the Research Subject Worksheet. Okay. So basically, now that you've had some time to research both sides of your subject, I want you to develop a research question that you want to ask in a position that, that an answer is the position that you want to take in your paper. So something that you're curious about now that you've researched both of them. Okay. So this assignment just gives me kind of an overview of where you think you're going with your paper. All right. So answer the following questions in a paragraph. What's the subject you've chosen? So you already know that from working on this paper. Why did you choose this? I'm kind of getting an idea of why you're interested in it. And then last, what is your research question? Okay. So for some of you, like the ones I can recall, should we pay college athletes, or should we have universal free school lunches? Something like that the answer will be your thesis statement and be able to guide your paper, okay? And then the next part is you guys have kind of dipped your toe into the research part of it, right? Now I want to see that you know where you're gonna go for more specific information, okay? So I suggest really chatting with the librarian. He's probably really bored by now anyway, with nobody on campus. You guys remember Paul from the orientation? So I recommend that you chat with him. Tell him what topic you're researching, right? The library brain. Okay. And because what I'm looking for here is not specific sources that you're going to name. You'll do that in the next assignment, which is an annotated bibliography. For this one, I just want to know, do you know where you're going to go do your research? So if you're doing school topics, one of the things Adeline that you might use, because she's looking at school lunches, there's a database specifically on education topics called ERIC, Education Resources in Curriculum, I think it stands for. So as well as having the general ones you guys are used to looking at, you can also get some that are nice and specific to your topic, so you don't have to look through as much, because you know what it's like to go in there and research something and pull up like 100,000 or more entries, you can't, and then you have to narrow it down. It is good that you know how to narrow it down, right? But still, it's nice to have a database that, is just on your topic of education or sports or medicine. So that's what I'm looking for in that section, is where are you going to go look for source information? What databases? What people, if any, if you're going to interview your coach or someone who's involved that has expertise, right? So, and then the last piece of information I want is, do you see any problems with it? If you don't see any problems with it, say, no, I don't, but I'm trying to get a sense of what you're worried about, so maybe I can help you with it. So if you're worried about finding sources, if you're worried about not knowing how to focus, tell me what it is you're worried about, and then maybe I can help you and ease some of that problem that you're having, at least heading into it, okay? So that I would like for Thursday. That way, running into next week, you'll have an idea of where you're going to go do your research, okay? And I've updated the assignment due dates on there, and I'll probably put a list of all the assignments we're going to do to the end of the semester under announcements here, either today or tomorrow. So you kind of get an idea of where we're going. Any questions about the research subject worksheet? My chat. You can change subjects. I'd like it to be relevant to your last paper because you kind of got an overview, but if you're really not liking your subject, or there's something that you came up with that you prefer, anybody else thinking about changing topics? It happens. If you do, then you're going to kind of have to do the same background that you did with this paper you're turning in tonight, only you're not going to turn it into me. You're just doing it for yourself. You're getting an overview of the issue by doing the research on it. So yes, if you now, this is probably at this point is the last time you want to change topics. because this is the point where you start looking in databases and things for sources. And if you can't find enough sources, that's the time to bail, right? Might be a good topic, but if you can't find enough research to back up what you want to say, it's not a good topic for a research paper. You can't find the research that you need, then you really do want to change your topic. But I think from what I've seen everybody's writing about, I think you're all okay so far. And you can always let me know if you're having trouble finding sources. If the librarian, can't help you, maybe I can help you find some stuff because I've seen a lot of these topics before. Good question. Anybody else? Good. Okay. So that's the assignment we're working on for Thursday. Now, I want to talk about what makes a good argument. Okay. What is the benefit of an argument? And what to look out for in bad arguments, because frequently what we call logical fallacies are flawed arguments. Okay, their logic, if you look at it, when you break it down, it doesn't quite make sense. But they're very popular because a lot of people are busy, right? Who has time to analyze the logic of most arguments you see on Twitter or Facebook, right? But if you know what they are, you can kind of recognize them pretty quickly. So the one I want to talk about today is pretty popular, and it is called hasty generalization. Okay. And with hasty generalization, a lot of stereotypes are based on hasty generalizations, right? So if you say all blondes are dumb, or all Irish people drink, or women can't drive, usually this is somebody basing their conclusion either on just a few instances, right? And then making a large conclusion about the entire population based on too little evidence. You guys with me? So there's a little video that kind of goes over it, and then we're going to talk about it and find some examples. So let me share that video. Or send you the link. Just a 1 minute short little video. 1.5. All right, I'm gonna let you guys watch this video. This one right here. When you're done, type done in the chat, and then we'll keep going. Okay. So you can kind of get an idea. And one of the things that I'll caution you about is, like, I ask you when we're doing the research paper, there are 3 ways that you appeal to your audience. You appeal obviously through logic, and that's the one that you guys are probably most familiar with for a research paper: hard evidence, facts, the opinions of experts, statistics. All that's good for appealing to logic, but we also want to appeal to their emotions. Sometimes I say write a research paper, and everybody's like, it must be as dry and dull and boring as humanly possible because it's a research paper. No, you're still talking to people. So you can use stories. You just have to be careful not to do the hasty generalization, which means you take that story and say, all athletes feel this way, right? Or all kids who eat lunch at school feel this way. You can use them to say, here's one perspective on it. Okay. This is one thing you'll see on the news a lot, like especially you'll see it in the upcoming election. They'll kind of get a panel of voters and ask them questions. And they don't say it, but they sort of imply that all voters are like these voters that they're talking to. Really, they should be more careful about saying, here's just some voters, it doesn't represent all voters. Okay? Because the hasty generalization is to say these 3 or 4 people we talked to represent the opinions, feelings, thoughts of all voters. They don't. They would have to do more of a research study, or that's what polls do, is they select people based on certain criteria, so they're getting a representation of all of the people in all of the groups. Okay? They have to be careful that they're not polling all one party or the other, or one demographic or the other. So they have to have a science behind the polls that selects people that are going to represent each group they're trying to poll. They do that for exit polling too. Any questions about the hasty generalization so far? So go find me an example of a hasty generalization. Online. It can be a meme, a movie, an argument, a news clip. Okay, just something where somebody's taking 1 or 2 people's opinions and implying that this fits the whole group of people. And when you find it, come back and paste the hyperlink in the chat, and we'll look at them. Look at some different examples. I'll have some examples to show you guys too. Yes, Mary. Yes, Robert. Anyone named Karen? Yeah, I've been seeing the Karen memes a lot. Yeah. Alexis has one from YouTube. Let me see if I can get it up here.
Not to be racist or anything, but Asian people.
Hold on.
Not to be racist or anything, but Asian people.
Yeah, racism is frequently based, right, on hasty generalizations. Just silly mind, yeah. See what Caleb's screenshot is. It's not gonna let me open it. Can anybody else open it? Ah, let's see. It's taking its time loading. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is President Trump. If you haven't pulled it up yet, it's his quote when he was running for election. When Mexico is sending its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Okay? So that is a good example. Caleb, can you explain a little bit more about why it's a hasty generalization? Julian, that's a good one. Yeah, and see, it's human nature. Like, I still assume it a little bit, even though my dad hates computers. So, like, I can't assume just because of my experience. Now, if it could be true, this is where it gets tricky and people get sucked into bad evidence. Because if there's like wider polling evidence where they poll older people about their interaction with technology, right? And whether they're experienced with it or not. And the poll or the survey shows that they do have less experience. That means it's true, but that's hard evidence, right? Not just my experience with my dad, okay? Or your experience with your grandparents, right? My mom's actually very computer savvy. She's always on Twitter and, you know, follows people. She follows a K-pop group, which is a little disturbing. But and she's always like hitting likes for them, trying to help them in their like little fan goals. So she's actually pretty computer savvy. You have to look at a wider selection of evidence. All right, Matt's got one here. Oh, Caleb's explaining more. He didn't have the facts to back up that just because they're from Mexico, that they're the kind of, that they're all rapists or criminals, right? Assuming that he's going based on just a few examples that he's heard of. Like when they'll run an ad, like especially a campaign ad that says this guy came and killed someone and he was an illegal from another country. This does not mean that all people who are illegal are murderers, right? Just the same way somebody who kills in this country doesn't mean everybody in this country is a murderer either. But they use those to sort of, make arguments that don't, if you look at the logic, make sense. All right, Matt, what do you got here? Right. Yeah. The idea that women will vote for this candidate, African Americans will vote for this candidate. Yeah, regardless. I mean, for some instances, it's true, just like anything else. But you have to have a wider sampling of information. You can't just assume that, right? Yeah, I think you guys really have the idea. So here is a kind of a fun video I'll share with you that Denmark did kind of to point this out recently, that as human beings, we try to understand the world. That's normal. But we tend to put people in categories and then we don't let them out of their category. Whoever we have defined them to be, because if we do that, then we have to reevaluate our understanding of the world, which just can be hard. It's work, right? But you can't always assume that people are the same in a certain group. So this is a kind of cool ad that they did in Denmark. Hold on one second. You guys might have seen this one before. All right, can everybody see the YouTube screen?
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual. And we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life. And we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share. It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us.
Hold on,
And there's
sorry.
them. The high earners.
Okay. So what you want to do is be able to use people's stories in your writing to appeal to people's emotions without making a logical fallacy that says this applies to everybody in this group, right? Because we want to hear from people. We're more interested if you can attach your subject to real people who it affects. But at the same time, you just have to be careful not to walk that line, go over that line where you're basically saying that everybody in this group is like this. Unless you have, then you can couple it, ideally, if you can find it, with a research study that says most students feel this way about school lunches, okay? Or most parents are concerned about this for their kids at school. So if you can couple it with something that has scientific, logical research that it's based on, then you have the best sort of appeals of both logic and emotions, right? So, have you seen any hasty generalizations in the news? Let's take a quick look at the headlines. The last few minutes we have.
Would it be like Trump calling it the Chinese virus instead of the coronavirus? That kind of like insinuates that, I don't know, maybe everyone Chinese, like everyone that's Chinese has it or something like that.
Yes, yeah, that's probably like, I don't know if you guys have seen that, like, but some Asian people have been attacked in the United States, like physically attacked, and that would be the hasty generalization, because in China is where the virus originated, that every Asian person has coronavirus. And that obviously makes no sense on a logical basis, right? But it causes problems. So that's why, like, we've had a bad history of naming diseases after places. Although, like, the swine flu actually originated in the United States, and we didn't name it after, we didn't call it the United States flu, which is curious, right? We called it the swine flu, named it after the animal that it had originated in at that time. So the CDC, that's why instead of calling it the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus or Wu flu or something like that, they specifically said, we don't want to do that anymore because it stigmatizes. And the Spanish flu that a lot of people talk about in the news when they're comparing it to this pandemic actually did not originate in Spain. At that time during the war, because we were in World War I, Spain was neutral, so they were more forthcoming about telling people this is how many people we have infected, this is what's going on in the country, and because most of the flu news came out of Spain, they just ended up calling it the Spanish flu. That's, you know, so a lot of people are under the misapprehension that it actually originated in Spain when it did not. So yeah, that's why with this, the origination of this flu, they're like, hey, it's probably a bad idea that we do that because we're creating this stereotype that doesn't make sense for some people, right? Excellent question. And that's the way stereotypes can be extremely harmful to people, right? If you assume a whole group thinks in the same way or operates under the same belief system or has the same disease, that doesn't make any sense, right? Just because you're Asian that you would have a flu that came from China. Same thing happened after 9/11. Some people who did not know differences between religions actually attacked Sikh people, who are the people who wear, some of them wear the turbans, who are a totally different group than Muslims, but because they did not know, and then a lot of the backlash against anybody Muslim in this country, because these 13 or so people who were Muslim attacked, then all Muslims feel this way. That doesn't make any sense, right? No group is uniformly agreeing most of the time on all of the beliefs that they have. So yeah, those are good ones in the news that I've seen recently. I can't think of any others. So you want to appeal to emotions with stories in the research papers, but you don't want to say that everybody is the same in that group just because you're using their story. Okay? That's the good use of an emotional appeal, to connect us with the issue without overstating the significance of it. Okay? We're about to run out of time. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about working on the subject worksheet or about the paper that's due tonight? Look around for hasty generalizations that you do. I do them all the time and then I have to correct myself. It's kind of like built in when we're trying to understand the world. So examine the ones that you have. What are the hasty generalizations that you kind of internalize that I continually have to question my own beliefs, because I think it's just kind of instinctive to human nature to try to understand people and then go, okay, I know who they are. I'm going to put them in that box. You got to let them out of the boxes. Nobody wants to live in a box, right? So one kind of interesting thing to do is examine your own hasty generalizations. Bring me one tomorrow that you think you have. I'll bring one too. Okay? Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll talk more about logical fallacies. And I'll see your papers tonight. If anybody has any questions, please email me. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.